I believe this summit has been underpinned by the power of ideas to mobilize action, to build a more just, a safer world, because it has never been so important. And we just heard a very inspiring presentation by the Secretary General and by the President of the World Bank, which have painted a very eloquent picture of the times we live in. You will not be surprised, as Director General of the United Nations Organization for Education, Sciences, Culture and Communication, how delighted I was by the passionate speech and presentation and commitment by the President of the World Bank, Jim Kim, plead for education, for innovation, and the launch of this so important platform and education. This is the same commitment that underpinned UNESCO's action by launching yesterday the Global Monitoring Report 2016 in Arabic, in order not just to exchange ideas, but to put a very concrete platform of action for the future, for excellence, for innovation, for social inclusion. And we all know that on one side the world is more than connected, and vast opportunities exist. We see new sources of innovation emerging, catalyzing advances in science, in technology, driven by information and communication technologies, and crafting what is most important, new sustainable solution to the pressing needs of humanity. We see new forms of public policy and partnerships, new global agreements founded on human dignity, on human rights, guided by new humanistic vision of change for the benefit of all. And I believe the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations for Sustainable Development and the Paris Climate Agreement show this ambition, this thirst that exists for multilateralism, for multilateral diplomacy. These agreements, in fact, embody what I see as a new multilateralism. It's complex, it's multi-layered, it's reaching beyond agreements and beyond governments. And this is precisely why they can succeed. And I believe this approach is vital because the stakes are very high. Climate change is accelerating. Across the world, we see conflict tearing societies apart, humanitarian tragedies of unprecedented scale. We see humanity on the move like never before, often at gunpoint. We see societies in transformation, facing sometimes the rise of exclusive policies, challenged by violent extremism. We see development stalling, inequalities deepening. Klaus Schwab, in the World Economic Forum 2017 Global Risks Report said, and I quote, "The world is underemployed, under-inclusive, and under threat." And I wish to focus now on what I see as a red thread tying these challenges together. This is exclusion. The exclusion of young people, uneducated, abandoned to poverty, displaced by conflict or by climate change, the exclusion of girls and women, taken from schools, forced into marriages. In response, I believe the new global agenda is unparalleled in universality and scope to tackle precisely these challenges. And at the heart stands our single promise to leave no one behind. Inclusion is this force to prevent conflict and sustain peace, so eloquently presented here by the Secretary General Guterres. Inclusion is a motor to open new paths to sustainable development. Taking this forward calls for new political will, new partnerships, a new openness with civil society and the private sector. In many of these instances, hard power is not enough. Winning this race calls for soft power through respect for dignity, rights, through empowerment, through inclusion. This is, I believe, the essential contribution that UNESCO made, created precisely to build the defenses of peace in the minds of women and men. And this must start as early as possible on the benches of schools. This is why education stands at the heart of the new global sustainable development agenda, with the call for education to represent 4 to 6% of GDP and 12 to 15% of public expenditure. And I want to commend the United Arab Emirates for their strong focus on education. But not just any education, quality education that reaches every girl and boy, and I put an emphasis on girls. Education that harnesses new technologies, that catalyzes research and development, because we know the power of technology to widen access to learning through open educational resources, e-learning, mobile learning, massive open online courses. And through our flagship annual Mobile Learning Week, this year focusing on education in emergencies, we are providing a platform to advance and scale up good practices. But we need also education to protect the planet, to foster new forms of what we call in goal number 4, global citizenship. Education that matches skills to development and market priorities, and education that fosters intercultural dialogue. Unfortunately, today still, we see more than 250 million children, adolescents and youth that remain out of schools, and refugees that are hit hardest. Education must be integrated into peace building from the start. And in all of these circumstances, girls and women carry the heaviest burden. On current trend, what the Global Monitoring Report of UNESCO shows, the world will achieve universal secondary completion by 2084, or 50 years later than our horizon of the Agenda 2030. So when it comes to education, business as usual is not an option. We need massive investment in education. We need renewed political commitment to educate, because in times of scarce resources, in times of limits of our planet, the ultimate renewable energy that we have is human ingenuity. And we should unleash this renewable energy through quality education. And I think that we should focus on education to be combined with living together. And I see this as a much neglected focus in public policy. Our societies are ever more diverse. We need new policies to match this reality, to strengthen social cohesion and inclusion, while making the most of the wealth of diversity on the basis of human dignity and human rights. We need new skills for cultural diversity, new competencies, and new literacy of culture and diversity. Because I know some speak about the clash of civilization. I do not believe in this. I believe there is a divide between those who believe in humanity as a single community, in those who believe that we can live together, and those who aim to divide us, who reject this notion of living together. And I believe this is the challenge of violent extremism, tearing the fabric of societies apart. This is the challenge of rising politics of exclusion. And we need a new commitment to the culture of tolerance. This means teaching our shared history, showing how cultures can always have been enriching by exchange and dialogue. Because culture is more than just buildings and tradition. Culture is who we are, what our identities are, how we see the world. Culture is about belonging. Culture is a strong force of resilience. This is about innovation, about creativity. And in societies that are increasingly diverse, we need a new particular focus on living together, on mutual understanding and dialogue. We need a new commitment to defending cultural heritage as a force for peace, as a force for renewal, for rebuilding. We saw last December in the international conference for the protection of cultural heritage in conflict areas in Abu Dhabi, with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince, and Francois Hollande, the President of France, this new strong political commitment. So, ladies and gentlemen, in ending, I believe that taking this calls forward demands a new leadership by all governments, but it is a public responsibility to build common ground to bridge inequalities. It calls for new partnerships at every level, and I echo here both the Secretary General and the President of the World Bank. We have to connect the public and the private sector. We have to connect also the civil society and the academia. As embodied is an initiative of the Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development, launched by UNESCO and the International Telecommunication Union, where we have the private sector, governments, the civil society and academia to harness new technologies for inclusion, for innovation, for the benefit of all. The very, I would say, strong commitment expressed during the annual Dubai Summit on Education and Skills with the Farki Foundation that we will be holding here in this city next month is another strong testimony of the commitment both of Dubai, of the Emirates, and the international community to building skills to empower young people for everything they want to be, to unleash this huge renewable energy of human ingenuity. And I think, at the end, this means widening the very notion of public goods and mobilizing new form of collective action, drawing on the experience of dynamism from laboratories to boardrooms, to the front rooms, the meetings, the civil society, and every single community that we can reach. Because education, inclusion, health, we all have a stake in more resilient societies, able to withstand the pressures of change and make the most of every opportunity. I believe this is the demand for new governance built on the multilateralism for the 21st century. I thank you for this commitment, and shukran, Al Jazeera. Thank you.